Good morning. I'm Susan Tomasich. Today I'm out at Murphy's Ridge Farm with General Manager Jordan, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about what goes on out here. So, welcome, Jordan. It's nice to
Thank
see
you.
you
It's good to
today.
be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you are welcome.
Well, us having you actually. But Murphy's Ridge is a half an acre canopy growing currently into a full acre additional of living soil farm. We've been cultivating here in Murphy's for 4 years, distributing and packaging on site with our brand for the last two.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, when you say living soil farm, what does that mean?
We are currently with our setup on the mixed light side, running greenhouses with living soil currently, and then we're building out the full acre in native soil. So
Okay.
actually in the ground. Over there, it's raised bed, and we do till in some amendments to keep our soil alive and thriving, which will change over the next couple of years. But the living soil farm that we're building right now is going to be all native soil in the ground as it should be.
All right.
Yeah.
So, your philosophy is not to use pots or troughs.
If we can avoid it, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And what's the reasoning behind that?
Well, we feel like we're going to produce the best product with the least impact on the environment by growing in native soil and not using any salt-based feeds or any sprays or anything of that nature. Just using basic amendments like gypsum or lime to pH the soil property, keep worm beds and castings and composting, and keep it all sustainable. And by keeping the soil alive and using runner crops and things of that nature, we're able to put as much into the ground as we take out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've been talking a lot prior to right now about the philosophy of Murphy's Ridge Farm. So why don't we talk a little bit about, no, why don't we start with your license type?
Okay. So we have currently we're in process of a full acre of outdoor, which is what we're building in the process right now. We have a half an acre of mixed light greenhouse. And then we also have the facility here, which is our distribution license, which is really more intimately involved with the distribution license, marketing, advertising, and the end product that goes to the consumer. Colin, the main owner here, is the farmer type.
Okay.
He's out there in the dirt, digging in the dirt.
All right, everybody's got their,
Everybody has their place and their talents, absolutely. We try to
Yes.
keep a family here and a team. We have all local families that work for this farm. There's 16 of us currently, and Colin's generational to Calaveras County. I'm a transplant as of 2006, married to a woman whose grandfather started the White Pines Mill up in Arnold, and so
Okay.
local roots. And we try to keep people working here that are going to stay in this community and keep the money and keep everything here.
okay.
You know,
Well, that sounds really good.
that's the idea behind it, at least.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the philosophy is that you're trying to grow the premium cannabis with higher testing standards.
Yes. So what we're trying to do is get the best quality cannabis we can and cleanest quality cannabis we can to the consumer for the least price, least profitable, least amount of money. On the consumer level, we understand that quality is a huge thing, and usually you have to pay for that to some degree.
Right.
So what we're trying to do is get quality product in the hands of the consumers for the least possible price out the door. Because we don't want people going in and supporting corporate cannabis over your local roaster mentality like we are here, where we actually have people touching the plants on a daily basis, intimately involved in this, and it's less automation, more human eyes on every step of the process, and we believe that that brings a superior product. We're testing for not only the 66 pesticides that the state requires, but an additional 330 that we believe to be neurotoxins and potentially harmful to the consumer. So
Well, as a consumer, I really appreciate that extra testing.
that's the idea behind it. So And it's just an extra cost to us. But cleanliness of the product, clean inputs, no pesticides, nothing EPA rated, is a huge part of our mentality. And a lot of people are really pushing for that these days, and we want to stay ahead of the curve.
Okay.
So,
So what's the mixed light? Oh, I guess I don't know what the right word is.
sure.
Well, I'm just
So the mixed light license that we're using there, we're essentially not using it to its fullest capacity because we can use supplemental light for our flowering stages. We only use the sun.
okay. That's where I was trying to go. So
Yeah.
your model, that's the word I was trying to look
Yes.
for. The mixed light model that you're using, you don't grow year round with it. You
We
have
do not grow year round. We are still subject to the environmentals up here. This farm's at 3,500 feet roughly, so we do get winter, we do get harsh elements, and the product that we would potentially grow in those harsh elements, harsh environments, would show that. So it wouldn't be a proper stamp of our name on that product unless it's just used for biomass or something in that realm.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So you don't do light depth with the way you're farming that?
We
or
are
you
doing
do?
light dep essentially,
Okay.
yeah. So that's it. I say I call it a greenhouse farm, but we've built our own mini greenhouses to encompass our half acre of canopy, and we're running light dep and controlling the sun's inputs. Sorry, and we believe that to produce a broader spectrum of cannabinoids that best affects the consumer.
Okay. And why do you not try to grow year round? Is it because of the quality that you're getting then when you're having to fight the cold and the?
Yeah, I mean we're up in the mountains in Calaveras. It gets harsh up here. There's waist high snow at some points coming down this driveway, and one for our staff and safety. It's a huge concern with this current setup we have. Not to say infrastructure can't change over time, as
Right.
you know, and things like that, but mainly for safety, getting in and out of here, and being able to produce a quality product. The sliding scale there just doesn't make sense for us to grow a full 12 months right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've never really understood that anyway. I always thought one of the benefits of farming was
Yeah,
you could
yeah.
have a big
Well, I mean,
big push in a growing season and then take a little time off and
Yeah.
try to regroup.
yeah, and I did come from the other environment where we were growing hybrid light greenhouses 24 hours a day, 365, and did 2 years doing that. Actually, in Arnold, just up the road, running a cultivation up there, and it's a different product at the end of the day. You're using supplemental light, which changes the spectrum of UV and of the sun spectrum that you're getting on the plant, which changes its inherent effect on the consumer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about THC levels and how they're not the be all and end all, that people really need to understand a little bit more about the product. So
And,
let's
yeah.
talk about that.
Okay. I know most people don't want to hear it, but I mean, it's to me the narrative with THC percentages is kind of comparable to an alcohol percentage, where 40% does this to you. That's the sip you're getting, and that's the effect of a 40% alcohol, like a vodka or whatever you might have. Cannabis, 30 something percent THC, 11% THC, with a huge cannabinoid spectrum versus an indoor product that was grown specifically just for high THC, are going to have vastly different effects on the person consuming, and their physiology plays into it too.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just changing the narrative into terpene profile, where you have your senses. It's a sensory experience. So by focusing on just the THC and the psychoactive effect of that particular compound and ignoring the rest of your senses in cannabis is something that we would love to change over time. And I think the consumer would end up getting a more tailored product to what their desired effect would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with your type 4 license, you can do pre-rolls, you can do flower. What is the extent of them?
So with the distribution license, and Calaveras limits us to self-distribution because we're
Okay.
not zoned industrial here.
Right.
It's an agricultural land, industrial building, but anyway, it allows us to do anything with the flower. We can package it into an eighth, half ounce bag, We can make a pre-roll, which doesn't as long as we don't change the nature of the flower. So we
Okay.
can change the size of the package you get it in, but if you change the nature of the flower or infuse it with a concentrate or anything of that nature, you're manufacturing at that point. That we don't do on site here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens to your trim, and what if you do want to have a pre-roll that has something infused? How do you get that?
So we work with a partner company, and manufacturers are all over the state. And the one that we particularly work with is um, Colin and Sean, the owners of the farm here. Kind of all came up and grew up together. So he's trustworthy, and he's a 22-year Army officer, combat veteran. The guy is as honest as they come in
Oh,
this
that's
industry, you know.
yeah.
And so we trust him and his process up there, up in Chico. They were the first licensed facility up there. So he pushed, he was on the ground level pushing for years before he was able to become operational.
Okay.
So anything we have with trim will get sent up to him, manufactured into micro diamonds or crumble or batter, or whatever kind of medium we need to infuse a pre-roll. It'll all get lab tested and finished product there, and then sent back through our distribution to be sent through to the retailers.
Okay, so basically by self-distribution, you are cutting out having to go to somebody else other than for manufacturing.
Correct.
So you're going straight to the
The
retailer.
self-distribution, yeah, I mean, in our sense, the self-distribution really encompasses everything that we sell under our distribution license and as Murphy's Ridge is made on this farm, comes from this farm.
Okay.
All the trim is from this farm, all the flowers from this farm, all the small plant material is all right here, grown here, and we're limited to use only that input, which is a beautiful thing because it kind of works with our mindset on single source being a superior product.
Okay. So is there anything in your spiel when you go into a store that you haven't told me just right now? And if so,
Yeah,
tell me
so
what you would say.
One person you didn't get to meet today is Sean Ryan. He's one of the owners of the company here. He's a Navy veteran, T3 down paraplegic, and he kills it in the stores. He's one of the, you can't get in and out of a conversation with Sean in under 30 minutes because he genuinely cares what every human has to say.
That is
So
wonderful.
I play into that a lot as we're a veteran-owned company, veteran-operated, and that we're pesticide-free, living soil, greenhouse facility. So we try to keep our inputs clean, the cost down to the consumer, and we hold a different standard than a lot of people do.
Okay. And have you been able to automate much? I mean, I know
Yes and no.
Okay. let's
Yeah, I
talk
mean,
about that.
efficiencies are a form of automation.
Right.
So in our packaging room, which is just around the corner here, we get to run an assembly line type setup but it's all human interaction, human touch points. We choose not to go full machinery because we feel that the quality it varies too much.
Okay.
When you have a human touch, human eyes on every step of the product, through the trim room, no machines in the trim room, just 5 ladies that are sitting there cutting each piece of flower, and that provides eyes along the way. You miss things like a mold spore in the center of a bud if you're using a machine. That machine's not telling you that's there, or a caterpillar, that's going to be prevalent here, or a little bit of aphid damage because we are subject to the elements. So we
Sure.
catch that based on our touch points using our people.
Now with the mixed light, do you end up running into the same kind of issues that outdoor goes? Like the year that, gosh, I don't know if it was the urgency ordinance or when it revamped, but there were voles. It was after the fire. There were
Oh, yeah.
voles everywhere.
We were losing
People-
plants this year left and right, but it's the nature of the business. It's dry out, and those animals find moisture in those stalks, and there's limited things you can do, but we're subject to the elements. We're growing in Calaveras up in the mountains. There's going to be oak trees everywhere, and oak trees bring aphids, and that's always an issue with cannabis because as soon as those terpenes start broadening, the aphids switch from the oaks over to the weed, and that's where they're attracted to. So it's always going to be a maintenance thing up here. We try to use oils and things that are that'll manage colonies or deter pests, but we're not using anything that's killing pests.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just think that every year there's something different. Like
A lot of
one
people
year
were getting crushed this year from grasshoppers.
Yes, that's what I
And
heard.
they were just inundated, and those things will chew right through the stalk of a plant.
Yep.
Luckily, at our elevation, we're not subject to that, at least not yet. You know, as the earth gets warmer, maybe we will at some point, but we've gotten lucky with that stuff so far. But voles, ground squirrels, mice, you know, they're field mice. They're prevalent. They're here.
Sure.
You know, and they're here to stay. We can't do anything about it.
No, absolutely
You know?
not. Okay. So what are your plans for the future?
It's a good question. Our whole philosophy here is what we've built out in 2 years. We consider an amazing feat. There's a lot of people who are struggling in this industry, and we've kind of kept our foot on the throttle. And our mentality is definitely keep going, keep pushing. Worry about how to implement it afterwards. Just keep moving forward, no matter what.
Okay.
So we are building this acre of in-ground living soil right now because we're at a point in our sales and as Murphy's Ridge that we need more product to produce, and we want it all to be from right here. So we are building that out. We are going to take our light depth greenhouse setup, upgrade that to a little bit more integrated, so we may be able to run 12 months a year.
Okay.
And keep the living soil there in something that's a little more rigid, a little safer for the crew to come out and run.
Sure.
And then it was a 200-acre property here, so who knows after that. I mean, I'd love to say that in the near future we're going to take Murphy's Ridge as a brand and move it into a couple other legal markets and start expanding from there. But those are all things that we've discussed, we're prepared for, and we're just implementing as time goes on.
All right.
Yeah.
So it is unusual. I think this is the first farm that I've gone to that's still trimming all by hand with no machines. That's
Yes.
pretty amazing.
It is.
And it's, I know something that I can't do.
I don't have the patience for it either. Those girls up there are saints. I couldn't do it. It drives me nuts just watching them because I'm just not suited for that physiologically. I have to move around a lot more. I can't even stand still. I'm paced around in the rooms and whatever. But I always said maybe I can trim if I could set it up almost like a marching drum where I can walk
There you
around
go.
with the tray. But I've never tried it really. But yeah, we try to keep the girls trimming by hand because, again, that hand touch versus a machine that's going to tumble, the visual of the flower and shaping the buds, you're never going to get the same effect if you don't use human touch.
That is true.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me because they don't look like they're moving very fast, but the amount of trimming they do in a day,
Oh yeah.
that's incredible.
Some of those girls will do 3 or 4 pounds in an 8-hour shift.
That is
And
just
it
amazing.
baffles
to
me because I probably couldn't get there a half a pound.
Yeah,
So
absolutely not.
yeah.
To talk about that we haven't talked about. Oh, you know
Maybe
what?
the change in the type of consumer we're seeing on the retail side, and the fact that I'd say that for me personally, being in these stores and going to help push sales, whether it's a little marketing thing, we set up a little booth, give out some stickers, make people aware of Calaveras' environment and how it's superior for cultivating cannabis, what we're doing, how we're doing what we're doing, and clean inputs, and basically telling somebody, here, this bag is going to cost you $20, this bag might cost you $10, but this is why this is superior and it's worth it for you. And it's we have some girls here that do this as well, and they're great talking to the consumer. But we've noticed that we're at a point where over, I think, 60 to 70% of all cannabis is purchased in a retail setting now. So that gray market, black market is dwindling, and retail is going to be the only way some people have ever purchased cannabis. Not
That's-
like you or I growing up where we had to hide it still, you know?
Right.
So these people don't know the difference. So educating them and watching these stores, when you walk in, it's a sea of color. For them being able to pick out the brands or the companies that are doing it right and still care about their consumers on a small scale, keeping corporate cannabis out, the hands out of the pot, really.
Right.
And then watching a grandma who's 80 something years old walk in for her edibles, and her granddaughter coming in with her for her little cartridge or whatever. It's amazing to see the spectrum of people that you get on the consumer level now.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I have read studies that alcohol consumption has gone down since the legalization of marijuana in California anyway, and I think that's countrywide.
Across the board, I think in any of the legal markets, they said consumption is decreasing, or at least however they monitor it. So it might not be overall consumption, but it's alcohol-related issues or injuries or deaths or things have decreased across the board.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the economic impact you have on the county. How
Okay.
many full-time employees do you have?
We try to keep all our people working full-time. So at this point, we have 16
Okay.
people on board, including myself. And we, even though we only cultivate for 7 months a year, give or take, we keep our people working. There's always repair, build out. We keep some of our ladies going to the stores to help push product. We package to order. So as we're testing these lots through these various labs, we keep everything stored, temperature and humidity controlled, and then we'll package to order to keep things as fresh as possible for the consumer on that end. So that allows us to keep people working. Our trimmers, they work hard, maybe 10 months a year.
Okay.
Take about 2 off to recoup,
I guess
get
you
their
have
joints
to.
working again.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Just to let your hands get a rest, you need
Absolutely.
to take some time
so,
off.
but that's by choice, and there's
Yeah.
always available work for them if they need it. So,
Well, that is wonderful.
yeah.
And just out of just a ballpark, how much money do you think you pushed into this community buying lumber and?
Significant amount. I mean, I know that price of the property aside, to build this facility out, it was all local materials, all local companies that helped us rock and grade and pour the concrete, and just that part of the facility is probably 1.7 million just for us to build out,
That
and
is
we're still
amazing.
going on de-rocking and getting some more ground prepped for like an expansion. So that's not even including the tax implication of just running 3 licenses, 2, now 3 quarterly taxes to the county, state renewal, state taxes, the fact that we don't get to operate federally in our write-offs the same way as most companies. The pinch is on there, and we're choosing to make less profit, but to keep this industry, to keep the integrity in the industry.
That's a really good philosophy, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it builds value to the company as a whole.
Oh,
You
I
know
think
what
it does too.
Yeah,
Yeah. I don't think you can have a holistic approach to a company and then have sneaky things going on in the
Sure,
background, 'cause that
yeah.
just doesn't work. It has
Yeah,
to
yeah.
just be organic and flow.
absolutely, absolutely. And the whole time along, I've been here for the last 2 years, is creating a community or a vibe about Murphy's Ridge that transcends the walls here, and you can kind of get a taste of that on the consumer level all the way through, just in the way we package things. Our packaging pays homage to the Gold Rush in Murphy's and the Calaveras County and Old Town Murphy's and the history behind what we're doing now.
Well, that's great, because then you're also marketing Murphy's for us.
We are in some way, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people will go, oh, maybe I need to go see this little town where this got manufactured
That's
or
the
grown.
idea. I mean, we'd like to bring people up here. We understand everybody operates on a tourist budget around here. So I mean, it's not that I think we're ready for cannabis tourism up here necessarily yet. Not to say it's not in the near future, but bringing people to Murphy's is we're making them aware.
Right.
Just making them aware of what's in California in general, and this is our area, so that's what we're going to represent.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So if you were going to have one thing that you could change in the Calaveras County Cannabis Code, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would love if we were treated more like an ag business, in the sense that, like, for us to jump from one license to 2 to 3, there's significant costs that for us to grow as a business, we have to incur these costs when the margins are so small, as opposed to organically building a little bit more here, a little bit more there, as our needs and our sales support it.
Sure.
So I would love to be able to stagger our growth instead of taking these huge leaps and try to figure out how to keep money in the bank account
Right.
for everybody. So that would be it would be enormous for us to be able to stagger grow as the business supports it, and we're happy to contribute our portion of to the community in taxation or whatever, within reason of what we can bring in and what it costs us to produce that.
Sure.
You know.
What does it cost to produce a pound of flour? Let's say just the flour, all the way through
So I'm
trimming.
I'm intimately involved with the all the way through to the final package end of it. So those numbers are a little more probably relevant or accurate for me, but I would say it varies so much. If you take the brand out, take the distribution license out of it, it costs us anywhere from $200 to $300 a pound to produce. If we're talking about labor, taxation, wage, property tax, the whole thing through.
Sure.
I mean, I'd love to say that it was less and we can make money selling $350 pounds, which is kind of where the market is settled to for light dep or greenhouse flour.
Right.
Up, people getting a little bit more and people getting a little bit less, but right in that middle zone at 350, there's very little room after you pay some trimmers, and there's not much left. So on the other end, when we're packaging, we incur all these other costs, distribution licensing, and we're taxed based on scale of our revenues. We have to do marketing and advertising and footwork in the stores. And, I think it's all scaled, so our outputs are a lot more, but our profit margin's almost comparable. So where we're getting $1,000 a pound on the, when we're packaging it ourselves,
Sure.
it might cost us $850 to produce that way.
Okay.
Because of the marketing and the footprint. So we're still working on a 20% margin.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's been really nice talking to you
Same.
today.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you for having me out. I appreciate your willingness.
Yeah, no problem. Colin suckered me into it. I would have never done it, but no, I'm just kidding. No, we're happy to have you and happy to support anybody that's trying to bring awareness of how cannabis is being unfairly taxed and treated, and then also someone who's trying to change the narrative for the county, for our communities, and for the consumer.
Well, thank you.
Yep.